Yes. The only way to.
What's the capacity of the room, Jeff? I'm wondering if we're at the capacity of the room.
I know, I can't, yes.
Are we at capacity of the room? Yeah, well,
Well, now you're here. I don't like, and I mean, and
we
I.
have to do something.
By that point, I was being applied and how would I do that? I did not expect to have. I have to figure it out, so.
Mic on, gotta, just once, tap it, green. Microphone.
Oh, it's right now? If you need it. Only if you want to. Yeah.
Go and just test.
My son jinxed me right before we came.
Test them. Mine's not working.
Out to talk.
Yeah.
I could either be good or bad.
Mine's not working. Test them.
It has to be green.
I did. I tested it.
There. I do hear it.
And that's.
Gotta get those hearing aids.
When I was in. Here also. Use Middle Eastern countries. Unfortunately, that was one of the tests. Yeah, my dad's like, it's really cool.
I was wearing like work out pants. Real pants. Mostly just my bag.
Yeah, and that's just one class, but the other.
Are you talking about the person, like the page boy kind of person?
No.
Oh, okay, that's the only young person I see.
This part. I did see his.
Yeah. Still there from last? My top timer.
Are you just gonna tell them locally that they have 30 seconds left?
Thank you.
Do you want like a 30?
Hey, Jeff.
Oh, this gavel.
Oh.
Where is it? I think you need it. I think. Where is it?
Yeah, I do think we need it, the gavel. Do you want me to ask? Is it in your office, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I see a shorter person. You talking about a short person in front of me?
No, I mean, we're talking about our own kids.
Oh, no, I think you asked me about someone who's drag.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh.
No, maybe it was her.
When I was in RA.
But I do think that the one kid by the door was at the drag story hour. I do think he was. I recognized him,
Situations where like,
but I didn't.
the residence hall director was like, no, it hasn't happened. And like, you know, the entire tenor of the situation changed. We're like, come on, we need to do the like cajoling people to a whole different voice. Just made me kind of do this. Like, did you take over from here?
No, I think some teachers have brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was somewhat shocking. Oh, yes, even though I knew. Did you cover his feelings? Right, yes, right.
No engaging. No engaging. No engage. No engaging.
I hope so. Yes.
elaborate.
Yes, because I'm like, I don't want to repeat that.
We can't find the gavel.
I'm sure there's a hammer in the kids area. We absolutely have to.
It doesn't. That's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? I know, I said the rest, I don't even know, like the rest of the week.
There we go, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to call to order the emergency or special Board of Trustees meeting on Monday, December 4th. Seeing a quorum present, I want to go over a few rules first before we go into public participation. So there's a frequently asked questions document on the website. If people want to refer to that, we also have it here. We're going to do public participation. We're going to do a meeting, then we're going to do a meeting, small break, a meeting room policy discussion among the board, then another public participation, if people still want to talk, then we'll adjourn the meeting. So this is a library board meeting. It demands respect and courtesy. So I would ask you all to participate in such a way. We're going to do 90 minutes. The first public participation will be 90 minutes. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes. They don't have to take the whole 3 minutes, but you will be cut off at 3 minutes. And I hope for a very fruitful public comment discussion period. So also want to remind people that we're live streamed and recorded. All the meetings are hosted on the library website, and they're live streamed so people can participate from their house or wherever. So we'll go first to public participation.
Intros.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
maybe we do intros of the board. So my name is Mark Kissinger. I'm the board president.
Lisa Spoons. Michelle Walsh, co-vice president.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, library director.
Lauren Betta.
Sarah Patterson.
Charmaine, we're just singing co-vice president.
Caroline Brinkatella, secretary.
So I just want to remind people, it's 3 minutes. If you go over, your mic will be cut. So we'll call the first number one.
My name is Harold Islin. I'm a fervent supporter of Israel, and I am also a strong supporter of the First Amendment. I generally believe that the response to speech we don't like is for there to be more speech, not less. The Jewish community certainly understands the importance of the First Amendment because our speech has often been suppressed. But there are limits to the First Amendment's protections, including under the library's access policy. No hate speech, no speech that incites violence, time, place, and manner restrictions, to name a few. I listened to and read Michal Pellet's statements. They consist of vicious lies that by any measure constitute hate speech and arguably an incitement to violence. To cite just two examples, quote, the event of October 7th was not done by the people of Gaza, it was done by Israeli forces. And there was no Hamas attack on October 7th. This past weekend, I personally met with victims of the Hamas atrocities, people who saw their family members and friends, including children, butchered. The victims know who did this to them. It was not Israeli forces, it was Hamas. Pellet's statements are not simply political or viewpoint speech. His statements are closer to those of a Holocaust denier or a white supremacist. His words send a signal to others that it is okay not just to hate Israel, but to hate Jews. And this comes in an environment where violence against Jews is very real. It may be convenient to think this won't happen in Bethlehem, but for the Jewish community, the threat of violence is very real. Remember what happened in Pittsburgh. So what should you all do? We know this is not a library-sponsored event, and we hope Pellet's views are not your views. But you have a harder task, which is to assess what is the impact of his words in this environment. We all know that the First Amendment does not protect yelling fire in a crowded theater. Members of the board, we are living in that crowded theater, and Pellet wants to yell fire. Your access policy does not require you to allow that. We ask you to take the time to carefully apply your policy to this situation.
Sure.
No hate speech, no speech that will incite violence, and especially not now. One final word. The Jewish people are tough. We have survived thousands of years of the Romans, pogroms, the Holocaust, and yes, October 7th. We will survive Mikal Peled, but we will not be silent in the face of liars, haters, and those who incite violence against Jews. Thank you.
My name is Rabbi Greg Weitzman. I am the senior rabbi of Congregation Beth Emeth, the largest and oldest Jewish community in the Capital Region. I also serve as a police chaplain, as well as an active member of the Capital Region Board of Rabbis and Cantors. My family and I live in Slingerlands. And today I stand before you to express my concern about having a speaker at the Bethlehem Public Library that has used inflammatory remarks and hate speech as a major part of his platform. I could stand here and tell you how Mr. Peled's words have personally triggered and caused harm for members of my community and residents of Bethlehem who lost family members in the terrorist attacks on October 7th. I could stand here and tell you how I check in daily with my own friends and family in the land of Israel who are under attack constantly from missiles and gunfire, and how Mr. Peled's words downplay their truth and their reality. 5 years ago, the very same organization that is sponsoring and inviting Mr. Peled to speak stood at the Four Corners with signs held up that said, "Stop the hate," in response to the shooting at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, where 11 lives were lost, which makes what I'm about to say almost ironic. The Jewish community here in the Capital Region and beyond is in pain. Since October 7th, every Jewish community around has needed near constant police presence simply so that we can walk into our sacred spaces and worship freely, as is our right as Americans. Hate speech, instigation, inflammatory remarks, and the rising risk of anti-Semitism has had an impact on the psyche of the Jewish people. We are hurting. Today, when I walked in here, I did not see any security or police presence. What a blessing to know that you feel so safe. It is not the same for us when we walk into our synagogues and sanctuaries. If you have ever had to tell your 3-year-old child why a police officer needs to stand outside of your church so that you can worship freely, then you know what I'm saying. Mr. Peled is not here for peaceful dialogue. His words of hate and instigation are a direct risk to my congregation and the greater Jewish community. I implore you to hear my concerns and know that the largest Jewish community of Jews in the Capital Region, many of whom live here in the town of Bethlehem, are facing daily risks simply for being Jewish. We need you to be cognizant that giving Mr. Peled a forum will be a microphone for his hate and will only increase the risk to the Jewish community.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Zalman Simon I'm rabbi in Bethlehem Chabad, just down the block. First, I wanted to thank the board and Bethlehem Public Library for this emergency meeting, and also allowing our organization just right out the door to have a Hanukkah display, not only this year, but for many years. We've had that, and we appreciate that, and we wanted to thank you. When Mr. Peled wrote on Twitter, quote, "Jewish Gestapo, who would have thought it was possible, ... #IDF, end quote, and other hateful things, he no longer was writing and referencing Israel's military or policies. Rather, he is talking about a Jewish issue. When a resident in Bethlehem will hear such rhetoric in today's environment, they won't necessarily associate it with only Israel, but likely all Jews. He's talking about me. I'm Jewish. As you can see, I look Jewish. As I mentioned, I'm the director of Bethlehem Chabad, a Jewish organization just a few blocks from here. A few days ago, my employee sitting in her office heard someone walking down Adams Street alongside her building, a Jewish building, and said, expletive Israel. This is very close to home. This means that this is, again, not an Israel problem, but a Jewish problem. He's crossed the line from disagreeing with Israeli policy and instead using vile language attached to Jews. I just want to finish with one point. As Mr. Islan mentioned, we've been here for thousands of years, Jewish people, and we've gone through tremendous hate, and yet we will be here, and we'll be here in the future. And the message is always one of positivity, and we collectively, our message has always been to add more light, and that is the message of Hanukkah, thank you, which is coming up Thursday.
President, members of the board, I join Rabbi Zellman. My name is Hank Greenberg, and thanking you for being as responsible as you have been by calling this meeting today. This institution is one of the crown jewels of the town of Bethlehem. For 3 decades, my wife Hope and my 3 children have come to this great institution. And in 3 decades, the closest I have ever observed anything remotely political or governmental was on the 4th of July when my 2 Boy Scout sons would recite the Declaration of Independence with the town supervisor and congressman. That's it. It's critical for you to understand what the issue before you is. The issue before you is not whether someone has the right to disagree with the policies of Israel. It is not. The issue before you is as simple as if you were presented with a member of the Ku Klux Klan who asked to use your facilities to have a platform to espouse racist diatribes. That is the question before you. If you would do so much as a cursory Google search, you would learn that the speaker that wishes to have your facilities as a platform is an avowed anti-Semite. Separate and apart from whatever he may think about Israel or not, you will see that he's been thrown off college campuses for espousing Holocaust denial. No more than you would let someone come to this facility and talk about slavery or the Jim Crow South or lynching in a favorable light. No more than you would ever allow that to happen. You cannot, you must not allow someone to use this institution's platform to espouse overt hatred of Jews. If you look around you, you see the community that has been in this institution for 3 decades, knowing that it was a place of wisdom, it was a place of learning, it was a place of ideas. You have a grave responsibility, all of you. You have been given the task and the charge to oversee a facility that has been a shining light in the town of Bethlehem. I beg you, I pray to you, protect that reputation. Do not allow an anti-Semite to use this facility as a platform to spew poison into this community. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evelyn Loeb, and I have lived in Del Mar for 38 years, just a block from this lovely library. It has always been so welcoming to us. I am the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors and a retired Anti-Defamation League diversity training consultant. I spent many years training educators and students about various issues of discrimination, and I was especially involved in working with college students and faculty on ways to recognize and respond to anti-Semitism on college campuses. And also how to recognize when normal criticism of Israel becomes anti-Semitism and turns into anti-Semitism. I am here tonight to share with you ways to recognize when anti-Semitism in rhetoric is specifically about Israel. The 3 Ds are used to determine this, and these are endorsed by the Anti-Defamation League. The first one is demonization. When Israel and its leaders are made to seem completely evil, when Israel's actions are blown out of proportion, of all sensible proportion, when Israel and Israelis are equated with Nazi Germany and Nazis, when Israel is seen as the sole cause for the situation in the Middle East, this is considered anti-Semitism, not legitimate criticism of Israel. Double standards is the second one. When criticism of Israel is applied selectively in a grossly unfair manner, and Israel is singled out when clearly immoral behavior of other nation states is ignored. For example, when Israel is criticized by the United Nations for human rights abuses, while the behavior of many other major abusers, such as China, Iran, Cuba, and Syria is ignored, this is considered anti-Semitism. The third is delegitimization, when Israel's fundamental right to exist is denied alone among all peoples in the world. This too is considered anti-Semitism. When people chant the slogan from the river to the sea, Palestinians have the right to be free, that statement agrees with the Hamas terrorist mission and calls for the total elimination and destruction of the state of Israel. The speaker for tomorrow's program, as people have said previously, being held in the library, is clearly espousing rhetoric according to the 3 Ds. And I won't get into the specifics because other people have mentioned that. Mr. Peled does not represent the Jewish nor the Israeli community. The fact that a person is Jewish and Israeli doesn't give him immunity from anti-Semitism. He is what we call tokenized by the groups that who are bringing him in to speak. Tokenizing is using a person of a minority group that doesn't represent the minority group's views. Under the guise of promoting peace, this person is used to cover up hate toward the community. I feel that the way to counteract hate speech is to educate with counter speech. And I'm asking the library board to utilize the information that I've offered you today and also to work to sponsor programs that undermine hateful content. Thank you.
Person who has number 6.
Hi, my name is Laura Weisblatt. I grew up here in Bethlehem. I attended Bethlehem schools my whole life, and I recently moved back here with my husband and children to raise my Jewish family in Bethlehem, a place we have always felt safe and protected as Jewish people, until now. October 7th changed us. It changed all of us. Not only have we in the Jewish and Israeli community been grieving our murdered and tortured loved ones who were victims of the worst form of terror during the October 7th attacks that took place in Israel, but now we find ourselves here, having to stop our peaceful routines as regular people to become activists, fighting for our very right to exist. We were barely given a day of mourning the tragic and immense loss of life and horror of hostage taking from our community, when suddenly it seemed like the world turned on us. We've suddenly found ourselves having to defend the right to exist, the right of our homeland to exist, and facing blatant anti-Semitism and Jew hatred all around us. I would like to highlight the experience of 2 of our Israeli community members here in Bethlehem who asked me to speak on their behalf today, Karen and Shoam, who are from Kibbutz near Oz, one of the places that was brutally attacked on October 7th. Their family and friends were terrorized. Unspeakable horrors happened to them. Their own brother was murdered by Hamas terrorists. Their family and their community are devastated and broken, steeped in unthinkable tragedy. And just a few days ago, Karen's son, a student at the Bethlehem Middle School, called her in tears, refusing to take the bus home from school, asking her to pick him up. When she asked him what had happened, he said, another student threatened him during recess, making chilling anti-Semitic remarks. The child told him, your family and Israel deserved what happened to you on October 7th. Everything happening in Gaza is Israel's fault. Karen's son was terrified to go back to school and refused to go back after this incident. As a BCMS alum, this story shook me to my core. Students not to feel safe as Jews in our own middle school is truly scary. I hope it is now clear from other people's testimonies how demonization and vilification of the state of Israel leads to acts of anti-Semitism and violence against Jews. Middle school bullying is unfortunately just the beginning. Karen teaches at a few local colleges and has now to teach with an armed guard in her classroom with the door locked because of threats against her for being Israeli and Jewish. As you have heard from other speakers, this event, Miko Peled, is polarizing and divisive. It doesn't move the conversation forward. It just fuels more Jew hatred. He has championed attacks of October 7th as resistance and terrorists as resistance fighters. He has denied the atrocities that they have committed. We, as Jewish people, perceive his words as insightful of violence against us. These types of events will only divide and separate our community, one that prides itself on being supportive, loving, and tight-knit, regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. As Karen has said, we are already afraid. We don't need more haters. I thank the board for hearing our concerns.
So
Like 7.
I'm 8. Okay. Good evening. First, I want to thank the library board for holding this emergency meeting to listen to the concerns of this community. I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Northeastern New York. Before that, I was a resident of Bethlehem and a graduate of Bethlehem Central High School. In fact, I was an avid user of this library, and I am profoundly proud that this community has such an outstanding public service at its disposal. That is one of the many reasons I am here this evening, to ensure this public service is not abused by those who would seek to politicize, demonize, and sow discord within the community. We have seen how quickly hate speech, fear-mongering, rationalizing terrorism, and conspiracy theories can escalate to violence. We watched in horror as a sole individual wreaked havoc and murder in a Pittsburgh synagogue because he hated Jews, and how a sole individual unleashed chaos and slaughter in a Charleston church because he hated African Americans. We must be vigilant, especially during times of heightened emotions and dangerous rhetoric. And we must never conflate political speech with hate speech. We all know that the Jewish community is vulnerable, and there's been a spike in anti-Semitism, just as there has been a spike in Islamophobia as a result of what is happening in Israel and Gaza. Denying that the Jewish state has the right to exist is not just anti-Israel, but anti-Semitic as well. Inviting a speaker who makes this claim will not spur debate or help the community address the hatred against our vulnerable communities. Instead, it will add fuel to a simmering fire and will put residents of this community in harm's way. Put simply, hate speech has no place in this library. Again, I thank you for holding this meeting to hear from the community about these major issues. Thank you.
Nine.
9.
Nine.
9.
Upside down. My name is Hope Grens Amsterdamer. I grew up here and left at 18 to live and study in Israel. Married an Israeli, have Israeli kids. My daughter's here tonight. I remember coming here as a child, and these walls, we would laugh and play and read books. There was story time. Then as I got older, having private lessons for SAT over here with my tutor. Then as I got older with the boys, it was a meeting place where we just kind of sit around the corner. But I never thought this would be a place where I would fear coming here, fear dropping off my children, and be embarrassed to call my library. I don't know if any of you read Hebrew or Arabic, because if so, I'm happy to pass this out to you. But everybody from Israel or anybody in the community knows Miko Peled. He has threatened our Israeli soldiers, has called for their death and violence in protection of Ahed Tamami, a female activist who is known to verbally taunt and insult and harass IDF soldiers. Miko called for the death to any soldier who would get near her. Miko Peled in 2018 traveled to Iran by way of the tunnels that Hamas are using now through the Sinai and out of Egypt. When he spoke in front of Iranian cadets, he denied being an American because he was scared. And he said he was an Israeli because he denounces the state of Israel and its leaders. This is a man that you're providing a platform to speak at my library, my public library. This cannot happen. This cannot happen to me and to my children. I left Israel after being in 2 wars to come home to a safe haven for me and my children, where we don't have to run from rockets, where we don't have to run and hide from terrorist attacks. Not here. Please, not here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Imam Mansour Rafiq Umar. I'm the Imam of the Muslim community of Bethlehem. We just opened about a year ago. I'm sure everyone's waiting for what I'm gonna say. Oh, okay. Sure, everyone's waiting for what I have to say, because I'm probably the only Muslim speaking. First of all, I grew up here. This is my hometown. I love many of the people here. Many of the people here I went to school with, friends with my brothers, my siblings. You know, this is my town, and I'm happy to call it my town. I actually didn't have anything prepared to speak about tonight. I didn't know this was even happening. I just happened to be coming in, and I saw it, and I said, well, why don't I just stop in and see what's going on? What I will say is that I understand a lot of the angst and concern and pain that a lot of people feel on both sides. You know, Palestinian side, the Jewish side, the Israeli side, the Muslim side. I understand that. And that's the kind of thing that we need to have dialogue about. We need to sit down. We need to be able to be comfortable speaking about Muslims and Jews. I just had Laura come over, and, you know, we sat down and our whole families had a 3-hour conversation. It was lovely. Gail Sacco over there, she sat down with my mom, and, you know, they had a conversation many hours. And, you know, that's the way we resolve this. If we can show people, hey, we can still have a conversation and not become violent. We can have differences and still sit together. That's so important. But I think the issue today that we're dealing with, we can always go back and look at the history, right? We can look at what happened. We can say people can take claims, claim to this land and claim to that land. I think it's about defining whether or not something is allowed to be spoken or not. That's the major thing. If the library has a policy, and the policy is that certain things are defined as hate speech and it shouldn't be spoken, then that's the library's policy, and that's that. But if the library doesn't have that policy, and their policy is we accept the First Amendment wholeheartedly, carte blanche, then anyone can speak. If somebody were to come here and say, as a Black Muslim, African-American Muslim, and say, we hate Muslims, we hate Muslims, we don't like Black people, we think they should go back to slavery, and the policy of the library is free speech is allowed, then they should be allowed to speak. Because my honest opinion is that good ideas will always trump bad ideas. So if anybody doesn't agree with whatever's going to be said, come and disagree. Come and say, hey, don't speak, don't say this, or not don't speak, don't say this and don't say that. That's my position, ultimately. Thank you.
Eleven.
My name is Chaim Ben Eliezer, and I didn't prepare anything ahead of time, but what I saw as an excuse for the neighbors of peace on the flyers that sent up, they said that anti-Semitism is not anti-Zionism, which I disagree with that, because anti-Zionism is a modern word for anti-Semitism. For the fact, anti-Zionism said that the Israelis have no right to live in the promised land. So what is the difference between that and anti-Semitism? It's against Jews. And I'll go even further than that. If you're anti-Zionist, you are pro-Hamas. Why? Because the Hamas and anti-Zionism have the same goal. Let the Israelis who live in Israel out of this country. So Mr. Pellet, that's supposed to come here, is a pro-Hamas, he is anti-Semite, and he's going to put all of our Jews in Delmar. I live here about 30 years already. And I felt so secure, not anymore. You just heard stories about children, what happened to them in our country. Mr. Pellet said that two-state solution that everybody talks about that will give to the Israelis license to kill. That Mr. Pellet said. And you guys want to bring it here to ignite the hate. It's just pro-hate. We have to stop it. Don't let our town to go downhill and put our safety in danger. This guy is a dangerous guy. And the freedom of speech, I understand, but to a limit. You cannot ignite hate and killing. That's what he says. Killing, because if he pro-Hamas, that's what he is. That's what he does. So I beg you guys, this guy have no room in this town, and you shouldn't let this guy come here for any reason. Thank you.
Yep, you got.
Good evening. My name is Linda Mandel. I retired to this lovely area in 2020. Thank you for putting together this meeting. I'm here to express my terror over the possibility of allowing this Bethlehem group and its keynote speaker from using this publicly funded facility as a podium for spreading hateful lies veiled as peace. The definition of free speech is the right of a person to articulate their opinions and ideas without interference or retaliation from the government. What freedom of speech does not protect is obscenity, defamatory speech, false advertising, true threats and fighting words. The First Amendment does not give a free pass to threaten, harass, or otherwise violate the rights of others. Miko Pellet is fake news. Opinions cannot take precedence over reality, and that reality is that Israel has a right to exist and defend itself against terrorism. Chanting from the river to the sea means erasing Jews from existence and threatens the homeland of the Jewish people. Rape is not resistance. Teaching a 6-year-old child how to stab a Jew is not education. Call evil by its name, and this evil is Miko Pellet. He wants to speak on this subject now as a response to Israel defending itself after the massacre and pogrom that took place on October 7th. There are not two sides. There are no good terrorists. There is no moral equivalency between Hamas and Israel. Please do not allow this group to hold its program at this library.
Thank you, Libraries Board of Trustees, for today's public meeting. I want to start by sending my condolences to two of my friends, Karen and Shoham, residents of Delmar, Bethlehem, who lost their brother in the massacre that took place on October 7 in Israel. From that Saturday, October 7th, no one is the same. Not us and not the state of Israel. No one's life has returned to the way it was before October 7th. That day, also called this Saturday was also named the Black Saturday. My name is Rivi Bahir. I'm an Israeli born and raised in Israel. I am here to support my friends, my community, and my country, the state of Israel. I'm here to ask you, the Libraries Board of Trustees, do you judge a book by its cover? You, the knowledgeable librarian, connect people to so much information day by day. Have you opened your books and checked who is behind all the organizations that support Miko Pellet event? Did you ask yourself, is this is what you represent? Is this is what you want to expose the next generation that comes here day by day? Even if this event behind closed doors. Is it because it's behind closed doors you are allowing yourself to turn a blind eye? We ask you today to open your eyes, open your books, and search. We trust you for the right decision.
14? I yield. Awesome. Okay, 15?
My name is Amy Bloom, and I thank you first for holding this meeting. Essentially, at this point in time, you've got a room full of hurting people, and hurting people need help. And right now, we're asking you, please don't make the pain any deeper than it currently is. It concerns me that we just had a gentleman speak about bringing the KKK and other hate groups here simply because there may not be a policy in place that says we can't have hate speech in our library. Our library needs to be a safe place. It's a community place. It's a place we all need to feel safe and loved. Our schools are not that right now for Jewish kids, for Black kids, for children of multiple minorities. This needs to be a safe place. And there's a room full of people here and those who were turned away, begging you to please not make Bethlehem Library a place of hate tomorrow night. We ask you to please listen to what we're saying. Thank you.
Oh, 40 years ago, I actually was in front of the library board. They asked me if I could put up, I was asking if I could put up the Hanukkah menorah. The question was, well, you know, we have a Christmas tree there. It's December. And what would you say to that? I says, we can coexist. You can have a Christmas tree and we can have the Hanukkah menorah. And as you see, they've been allowing that for the last 40 years. So I see the same idea is that there has to be a respect and appreciation for everybody. And that's actually from the name Bethlehem. Bethlehem in Israel is the home for many, many different religions. Jewish, Christian, Muslim. It's just all the one people that can coexist together. And I just hope that this community is just, like I say, emphasizing the love and the coexisting of so many different people. And I appreciate them. And like Reb Zalman, my son, said that, listen, I'm different than the majority of people in Delmar, but we were always welcome with open hands. And many of the Christian neighbors that I have always say, Rabbi, how's everything? How's Hanukkah? They're all appreciative and we get along with each other. And that is really, I think, the main hope that we're trying to say. We don't want hate. We just want coexistence and love for each other, respect. There's a lot of different people in Bethlehem. And if we could just be together and respect each other without looking bad at each other and looking at having no respect for them and getting rid of them, we don't need hate. We just need more love, like the city of Bethlehem in Israel, our namesake, so to speak, from our country. That right here, it should be Bethlehem, that we can coexist with everybody. Thank you.
Sure to like myself. Good afternoon, good evening, rather. My name is Tamar McKee. I'm a lifelong resident of County of Albany, and I've been a resident of the town of Bethlehem since 2017. I'm an attorney. I'm also the vice president of Al Hidayah Center, which is one of the largest mosques here in Capital District, located in Latham. I think this forum is a testament to the fact that those with opposing viewpoints can come together in a civilized manner, at least in the town of Bethlehem, and in a civilized manner have a discourse that, while difficult, is ultimately healthy and needed in order for us to have a meaningful discussion about our differences. Now, in looking at what the issue was for the board to discuss, I respectfully disagree with some of the prior speakers who have spoken specifically about the speaker's viewpoints and allegedly what he espouses and what he would intentionally speak about during this forum. The issue is far more simpler than that. The issue, and I have to put my attorney hat on here, is this speaker's forum in accordance with your policy? And in looking at your policy and the references that are on your website, your policy is to make your public meeting spaces available without regard to the content of the speech that is being delivered. But all of the viewpoints that have been expressed largely so far focus specifically on exactly what is going to be debated, discussed, and said at that forum. Now, if that's the direction that you would like to go, then it's antithetical to your actual policy, which requires policy change. But the danger with the policy change is, where do you stop? Who's ultimately the arbiter to decide where the free speech rights begin and where they end? And that becomes a slippery slope. A few weeks ago, and if I'm running up against time, please tell me, but a few weeks ago, we, as we have on multiple occasions now since the atrocities of October 7th, we applied for a permit with New York State to host a pro-Palestinian rally at West Capitol Park. And in my conversations with the folks that I was speaking to at the state, they made it clear to me that their restrictions on our ability to protest is limited to time, manner, not content, right? So to keep everyone safe, essentially. And they were very clear about that. It doesn't matter what your viewpoints are, as grotesque as some of those viewpoints may be with respect to some of the people that applied for those permits. That's what the First Amendment is for. So I would encourage this board not to follow through with public pressure to dox and cancel the speaker, but actually be a firm supporter of our First Amendment rights. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. I'm a BCH student, a library user, and a Jew. I respect the value of free speech, and I understand that Miko Peled, tomorrow's speaker, was not invited by the public library. However, I am deeply uncomfortable with the presence of anti-Semitic rhetoric at the library. Allowing him to speak gives the impression that his views are supported by Bethlehem and the library board. Peled has, on multiple occasions, made anti-Semitic comments. In 2016, he used his Twitter platform to refer to Jews as sleazy thieves. More recently, he denied the atrocities of October 7th. I'm saddened and worried by the decision to allow this man to speak at our library, knowing his messages are hateful as well as anti-Semitic. Put simply, allowing him to speak threatens my safety at the library and in Bethlehem. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having this forum. My name is Leanne Pinchak-Wilatis. Like a few speakers before me, I'm also going to put my attorney hat on. As an attorney, as attorneys, there's a number of us here. It's our job to parse words carefully. When we came in today, we were given copies of a number of policies. The public meeting policy, as well as the patron conduct policy. Tonight, you are faced with a conflict between those two policies. The patron conduct policy says individuals must refrain from language or behavior that threatens, harasses, abuses, or intimidates other patrons. You've heard before me, I think there were 18 speakers. 16 of them expressed the view that Miko Peled's own previous statements threaten, harass, and intimidate them. By allowing him to come here, you will be putting the community room policy above the patron responsibilities. I ask you instead to enforce the policy that enhances the library for all of its users, not the one that makes us feel intimidated to come here.
Hi, I'm Gail Sacco. I'm a librarian. I wanted to speak to the American Library's public meeting policy. I'm in concert with the lady who just spoke. The American Library's meeting room policy has a statement that talks about speakers who harass and make other people feel uncomfortable. That is part of the policy that this board has taken as their guideline for their own public policies. The patron policy also says, I have it pulled up on my phone. This policy was developed and approved by the Board of Trustees to ensure the right, safety, and comfort of patrons and library staff members. And it specifically talks about harassment and conduct in the library. People are upset. We feel harassed. We understand that the program has not happened, but we feel harassed. You've heard stories of people all over this community who have been harassed in various places. And we feel like this man is a man who harasses Jews. So in making a change with this program, I feel that you're acting in concert with the policies that you have already put in place, particularly the American Library Association policy for meeting rooms. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, 22. Pass. All right, 23.
I want to say something. Okay, I didn't took any number. It's not a speech, but I want to show you how fear we are live in our neighborhood. We have a sign that say we support Israel. Every night, somebody jump from the car, take the sign, and just disappear. My friend put another one, and it's disappear again. And I have a friend there, evangelical, they try to help Israel. They put also sign, they call me, they say, listen, we are afraid. The same picture, the same scene every day. People jump from the car, somebody open the door, just pull the sign and go into the car and disappear. So just to let you know how we can sleep at night, I have a camera all over. Thank you.
Three. 24. Running out of numbers. 25. Give me a roll.
Good evening. My name is Steve Redler. I live in Delmar. And I just want to say that October 7th, and since then has been a dark day and dark time for everyone in Israel. We all mourn the people that were killed in Israel and throughout the Gaza Strip as well. And Rabbi Simon was right that we need more love and not hate. And we need more dialogue. And the library is the proper public forum for having diverse viewpoints. And I think that's, this is the proper place for that. I think also several months ago, I attended a program on Ukraine. I didn't agree with the speaker, but I was glad that the library had a speaker talking about this issue in the war in Ukraine. So I'm happy that the library can provide other viewpoints. Thank you.
Six.
Good evening. My name is Jason Packer. I'm a Slingerland's resident. I'm a CEO of a company called Hill and Marks in Amsterdam, New York, and you're a very good customer, so thank you. But I want to start out by saying, I had quite a debate with a lot of friends about this meeting, actually, Jewish friends. because freedom of speech is very dear to us as Jews. And also hate speech is very familiar to us as Jews. And so it is a constant tug of war with us on how to handle that. And I understand what you all are trying to accomplish and make this decision. It's very difficult. This is not something that you are probably used to. This is probably something that you didn't wake up this morning thinking, well, I guess this morning you thought you were going to have this, but weeks ago you probably didn't think this was something that would end up on your desk. So we understand the difficult decision. We understand how hard this is for the community to try to grapple with. But I will say this, my children go to a Hebrew day school, and the day that Hamas said to attack Jews, the FBI was in the building. And as you can imagine, if you have children, that is when your heart goes down to your feet. And it's something you don't ever want to have to think about, that your children could be targeted. So speech matters. You know, when somebody says something hateful, it matters. It can impact the lives of people here. It could impact your lives. If he says something detrimental or hateful, and somebody hears that and wants to do something because of it, all of you could be, you know, in danger. That's workplace harassment. I went through the workplace harassment training. I know that this is workplace harassment. So even if you feel that there's free speech, you're all being harassed because you're in the vicinity of it. You're in the building when a harassment is happening. So I think you need to think about not only how that impacts the Jewish community, how does that impact your employees? How does that impact the community, but how does that impact all of you and the people that are working for you? So I think you need to think about it in broader terms. But I do appreciate the opportunity. I think that all of us here are very grateful for this library and grateful for the opportunity to speak and giving us this chance. And we all obviously, as Jews, hope that you make a decision that is thoughtful and takes into consideration what could happen afterwards, the consequences. So thank you very much.
Too long. My name is Maud Easter. I live in Delmar. I've always been really proud of this library and the services that the library provides. I've been to programs here and had the opportunities other speakers have mentioned to learn things that I wouldn't have otherwise known. I think you face a difficult decision right now. I'm very glad that you adhere to the American Library Association position. I think that position grows out of the sense that libraries have a unique place in the community to broaden knowledge, to foster dialogue. And I sincerely hope that you will continue to offer this space for the presentation by Miko Peled. Obviously, there are things that he says that many people will disagree with. But I think that it's very important right now with the terrible situation going on in Israel and in Gaza, with people so afraid there as well, to have an opportunity for people in the community to come together to talk about the issues. And I'm on the steering committee of one of the groups that is co-sponsoring this event. I'm on the steering committee of Women Against War. And we viewed this as an opportunity to foster dialogue on this issue and to help us all move toward some peaceful resolution of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. And I think this is something that the library can make a real contribution on, and I hope you will do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
For 3 minutes from someone passed. Okay, my name is Mark Gronich. I live in Delmar, and can everyone hear me? Okay, yeah. I was on the fence whether I should speak or not because there are such eloquent speakers before me. So I decided to give this a shot. I'm gonna, when I was thinking about this for the past few days, I'm basically going to ask the question, which part of free speech don't you understand? But free speech, is protected, but not hate speech. And I think that if someone's uncomfortable, they could either leave the room, that Jeff, you could be here and listen. And if it gets out of hand, you could pull the cord and you could shut the mics off and you could say this is over. If it goes against your policies at the library, you should be here and listening to what's going on so you could be the arbiter. I think the board missed the boat on a lot of this because they didn't do their due diligence, Nico Pellet, before whoever sponsoring this said, we want the room. And then you say, okay, well, we have to let you know. And then you look at who this person is. And then you could just have a determination, from the board. I was at a conference in Atlanta and I found it surprising that the FBI does not want to get involved in First Amendment controversies. They will only get involved if there is a violent attack. The First Amendment guarantees free speech, but not hate speech. So if the library said that, should be here. Also, using the quote, from Evelyn Beatrice Hall in 1906, I was there and I heard her. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death you have to say it. Keep in mind, sunlight is a great disinfectant. Let these hate-filled Palestinian supporters come out from behind the curtain so we know who they are and can avoid them. Anyone who doesn't want to hear them, they can stay home. We know what? 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay. Well, some of the things you may hear from Mike Nico Pellet, because he's going to be talking about his book, The General's Son, Journey of Israel in Palestine. Palestinian resistance is not terrorism. The siege of Gaza, home demolitions, killing civilians, military occupation, the state of Israel, all acts of terrorism. The Israeli apartheid system must be defied, and BDS must be adopted fully so that the separation wall will come down and that democracy will, with equal rights, can be established in Palestine. So you're going to hear hateful words and hurtful words. So thank you for giving me the 3 minutes.
My name is George Forrest. I live in Delmar. When I graduated high school, I went to Cornell University. In my sophomore year, my father passed away, and in line with Jewish tradition, every morning I went to Kaddish, which is a Jewish morning prayer at Young Israel. After October 7th, pro-Palestinian people threatened to burn down Young Israel and kill all the people who lived there. When I graduated college, I went to Kibbutz Nir Oz in Israel, which was on the border with the Gaza. Recently, 100 members of Kibbutz Nir Oz were murdered. Women were raped, children were tortured and murdered. Now, I live in the town of Bethlehem. I go every Friday night and every Saturday to Temple Beth Emeth, where Rabbi Weitzman is my rabbi. We have to have a policeman in front of our synagogue. There's no other religion that has to have a policeman in front of their synagogue or their Bible study for children. Somebody once said about pornography, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. If you look in Wikipedia about this man Peled, what it says is that it refers to Jews as sleazy thieves. Not to the state of Israel, but to Jewish people as sleazy thieves. I would not allow in my home somebody who uses the N-word or derogatory words for LGBT or any other racial group. I would think that that would be a stain on my reputation for them to be welcome in my home. And I believe that for somebody who's known for using the term sleazy thieves, that will come here will be a stain on this institution. And I would say that it would be a stain on each of you who allows that to happen.
$30. Listen, go to 31. 32.
I'll be 32.
I think we have a 30. Do we have?
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Leslie Hudson. I'm a proud member of Sorry. My name is Leslie Hudson, and I am a proud member and founding member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. And I think most of the people in the town of Bethlehem and people that work in Albany, live in Albany, are aware that we have been standing on the corner, the four corners, on Monday nights for almost 21 years. And if you read our signs, they support peace and understanding. My signs frequently say, war is not the answer. I feel very badly for all of the people who are suffering in this terrible confrontation. One of the things that I feel personally somewhat alarmed about is that I'm hearing the voices of people who are afraid and are hurting, that an organization that has been working for peace and justice for over 20 years, not terribly successfully, but that has been our goal. And I get the feeling that certain people are afraid that if we listen to what Miko has to say, and it will not be for the first time. Miko has spoken at another Albany area library about 12 years ago. Maybe. Pardon? Anyway, he has spoken before in another Albany system library. He was not inflammatory. He was not hateful. He was informing people and answering questions. And that is what we do as an organization. We have forums, we have documentaries, we have meetings here that are open to the public. Anyone can come. Anyone can come and voice an opinion that's in support or in disagreement. And so I do not want people to be afraid of an organization sponsoring someone who may have an opinion that they don't agree with. Our organization is filled with Palestinians and Jews. We have Holocaust survivor Michael Rice is in his 90s, and he's been a member of this organization since its inception. Our organization is one that is working toward peace and understanding and knowledge and education. And I don't want anyone to feel threatened by what we're doing, because there's no intent to frighten or harm anyone in our organization. It is Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, and that is what we stand for.
$33.
Hi, my name is Hazel Landa, and I live in Delmar, have for about 9 years. And I'm a member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace and Women Against War. Peace activist for a long time. I'm not comfortable speaking, and I'm not comfortable with this situation, I think free speech is important. People have a right to think to say what they think. I agree with everything that Leslie said. Sometimes I find it hard to, I feel bad in this situation because I know people feel threatened, and for good reason in many cases. I even feel threatened about going to the meeting tomorrow program because the director here mentioned in one of his letters that he had received threats. No, it's not so. Oh, okay. So that he had consulted the town, which made me, very uneasy too. So and my late husband was Jewish, and he fought in World War II for the sake of his family and his countrymen and his ancestors. And he was subject to being looked down upon and threatened, whatever. So, no, it's not comparable to what people here have gone through, but we all have to deal with it sometimes, and it's not a good thing. So I just wanted to say something tonight to express my feelings and my support for peace.
Four.
My name is Bob McDonald. I'm a resident of Delmar, not affiliated with Neighbors for Peace or any of the other groups that are involved in tomorrow night's presentation. In the library's present meeting room policy, it refers to the American Library Association Bill of Rights. And to quote a portion of that Bill of Rights, it notes that, quote, the presence and activities of some groups in public spaces can cause fear and discomfort. Nonetheless, the Bill of Rights notes that that speech is constitutionally protected. As a public library and as a government body, I think that the Bethlehem Public Library must continue with tomorrow's activity. It is, you must remain steadfast in your adherence to not only constitutional principles, but also, and as part of that, to your commitment to freedom of speech. We also quote another portion of the ALA's Bill of Rights concerning meeting rooms used for public occasions. It says such spaces are considered designated public forums, and legal precedent holds that libraries may not exclude any group based on the subject matter to be discussed or the ideas for which the group advocates. There may be some uncomfortable things said tomorrow night, but I think you must remain true to your principles. Thank you.
My husband warned me not to get arrested. There are so many people who are so much smarter than me here, and a lot of them have had a chance to speak. They've been very logical. They've talked from a lawyer perspective about policies and laws and procedures, and I'm going to speak from my heart. I think that this library has been one of the most important things for my family living in the town of Bethlehem. And for 30 years, I have gone from having a Bethlehem library card signed by a 5-year-old to my own Snoopy card. I come here often. I learned from the people who I come here and I talk with. When I was consulting, I worked from the library every day, from the computers right out front, and spoke with people from all different faiths, all different organizations, all different walks of life. But I have some real concerns about this. And my question is,
that if I wanted to really have a discussion that was provocative and that would move toward bringing people together for better understanding, it might have occurred to me to invite the other side to have a speaker so the conversation could be balanced. And what this conversation is a hate spewer who has been brought in by some town of Bethlehem people who I've honked at your darn corner for 30 years, who are not talking about peace at all, but who instead are looking to bring in a one-sided discussion. I would advocate that if you move forward with tomorrow because you feel that's necessary, that you ensure that there is an alternative perspective brought so that this can be a balanced discussion and not a one-sided skewering. Because I could go home tomorrow and I can say I'd like the meeting room and I'd like to bring in a group of my friends and we're going to have a discussion. But what we're really going to do is we're going to figure out how to, I don't know, something ridiculous on so many levels, bake brownies with arsenic to send to people we don't like. By the laws that you're saying, I can do whatever I like so long as my program falls within the guidelines. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just having a conversation with my friends. I don't bake. Nobody would really eat anything that I bake anyway. But according to your guidelines, you're saying everybody has equal balance. And if what you're really trying to do is foster community and foster a dialogue, then this organization really should have reached out to make sure that dialogue was balanced. Thank you.
Well, 37. 38. 38. 39.
Thank you for having us here. Can everyone hear me okay?
No.
Oh, closer. My name is Dee Levy, and I come to you as a resident of Bethlehem, Delmar, where I've lived for nearly 15 years. This is my community, and I've been involved with many organizations during my time here. I come to you as a Jewish person, but also as an Israeli American. I was born in Israel and lived through the Gulf War as a child. I remember carrying my gas mask with me everywhere I went. Picture a second grader walking back and forth to school with a heavy backpack and a gas mask. That was and is the reality of life for those of us who lived in Israel, and I think it's important to hear the lived experiences and perspectives of those who can share them. I'm here before you because I believe in free speech. I believe in the importance of education and dialogue. I also believe, although I believed it more strongly before October 7th, that there can be peace one day. However, for there to be peace, there must be willingness to have real open conversations, and they must come from a sincere, legitimate intent to do so. The program scheduled for tomorrow night is one that features an extremely and intentionally divisive speaker who is a firm believer in the destruction of the state of Israel. You may hear people say that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. I want to clarify these terms a bit. These are from the Anti-Defamation League website. Anti-Semitism is a form of prejudice or discrimination directed towards Jews as individuals or as a group. Anti-Zionism is a prejudice against Jewish movement for self-determination and the right of the Jewish people to a homeland and the state of Israel. It may be motivated by or result in anti-Semitism, or it may create a climate in which anti-Semitism becomes more acceptable. The organizations that coordinated the speaker point to their goals around peace. But peace cannot be achieved when the perspective brought to the table is one of Israel's elimination and denying its right to exist. Miko Peled is known for his anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic views. The fact he's Israeli American is being used to offer some higher level of credibility when the fact is he's being tokenized and used as representative of a minority group of people. Miko Peled does not represent the views of most Israelis or Jews, and in spite of the way in which his program is being marketed, is not here to talk about what's next for Palestine in a peaceful or productive way. His main goal is to argue for the destruction of Israel. I won't go through all the examples of his anti-Semitic comments and stereotypes. Those have all been provided along with screenshots to the board and trustees. Now, everyone should be entitled to their own opinions. However, being given a public platform, especially at a location such as a public library, serves to give more validity to the hate-filled rhetoric the speaker shares, and that is where the crux of our concerns comes in. I understand some people will argue that it is merely an issue of freedom of speech. However, we've seen the way in which demonstrations and protests quickly devolve into violence and hate. Just this past weekend, we saw destruction and violence when a protest spun out of control in New York City. We see it on college campuses and we see it in public schools. The speaker was intentionally chosen to create division and spread misinformation built upon a foundation of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. This program is being protested because we know what it means for the Jewish community here.
We know it means increased feelings of danger, feelings of being unsupported within our own neighborhoods, feelings of fear of escalation and hateful rhetoric. We are here to clarify that we are not opposed to free speech, but we are opposed to hate speech, especially the kind intended to inspire even more violence and hatred against Jews. Thank you for your time.
Can everyone hear me all right? My name is Sean Garrity. I'm 16 years old. I'm a resident in Bethlehem. I live in Slingerlands and I go to Christian Brothers Academy in Albany. I am a Catholic and I'm here tonight because I'm not here to argue or discuss about anything. I'm here to say what is right. And the people of Israel have long endured oppression, violence. The Holocaust slaughtered millions of people. And today I am here as a Christian because it is not right in any way, shape, or form for this public library to hold something that could further oppress the Jewish community. I take history lessons. I know what has gone on, what Jewish people have endured, and for them to have an unprecedented attack launched against them on October 7th and then be shown as not the victims is unright. It is not. It will not be tolerated in here, and I can promise you that myself and my brothers at Christian Brothers Academy will stand for Jewish people, because it's not about standing for Jewish people. It's about standing for what is right and who is right. And to facilitate this crazy idea of anti-Semitism is just, it makes my blood boil. And I am a student. I have homework to do. I will be up till 1 a.m. doing homework. But I carved out 2.5 hours to be here tonight, not because I need to. I came here on my own because I'm here for what I believe, what is important, and because I can carve out this time because I'm not going to sit and be a bystander and watch innocent people die and it be told that it's wrong. Thank you very much.
My name is Naomi Jaffe, and I'm here to support Miko Peled and his right to dissent. And I'm here to, as a Jew, to support my own right to dissent vigorously from Israeli policy and not be considered an anti-Semite. I am not an anti-Semite. I'm 80 years old. When I was born, my family were losing very close members of our extended family in the Holocaust. I have relatives in Israel. I lived in Israel. I believe that the life of a Palestinian is worth as much as the life of a Jew. I believe that the rights of Palestinians to live in that land are equal to the rights of Jews to live in that land.
And to kill and to murder.
Yes, and I believe
Please bring
that
back this.
the Palestinians who have been murdered are equally valuable to the Jews that have been murdered. Life did not start on October 7th. In the years before October 7th, more Palestinians, many more Palestinians were killed in that land and displaced. And many Jews, not a majority of our Jewish community, but many, tens of thousands of us, dissent vigorously from Israeli policy. And I will say that we will not be dismissed from the Jewish community, that we are part of the Jewish community, and that dissent is part of our tradition as Jews, that justice for all people is part of our tradition as Jews, that what I know from the Holocaust is that it shall never happen again to anyone, including Palestinians. 15,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in the past 2 months. That is not a Jewish value. That is not a value that I come here to stand for. I have a right to dissent from those policies and not because, and I am not an anti-Semite. And Miko Peled is not an anti-Semite. He has been vilified. His speech is not held hate speech. He's been vilified and lied about on this platform. I didn't hear every single word he said, but I will swear that he did not say that Jewish people in general were sleazy and thieves. If somebody says that about him, it's not true. He is a person that has fought for peace and has dissented from Israeli policies from the inside for many years. And that is not anti-Semitic. Supporting the equal value of Palestinian lives and Palestinian rights to live on the land is not anti-Semitic. Miko Peled should be allowed to speak And we as dissenting Jews, tens of thousands of us, should also have our right to speak and our right to be members of the Jewish community honored. Thank you.
Before we go to the next speaker, I should remind people to be respectful of every speaker. We've been here for a long time now. We have a couple more minutes for the first public comment, but remind people to be respectful of everyone's opinion.
42.
Evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't intend to speak, but I feel I need to. My name's Ruth Singer. I live in Delmar, almost 30 years. And I'm so disappointed in the Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. I'm so disappointed. It was a group I really had looked forward to joining when I retired in a couple of years, but not anymore because I see something is amiss. Something is very amiss. From the river to the sea and all of the rhetoric, kill all the Jews. If people were standing in the four corners with signs saying, kill all the Jews, that would be okay. That would be okay. That's what that means. That's what that means. So let's get rid of the rhetoric. And we live in a post-fact society. We all know that from our political administration, right? In the United States. What do facts mean? Do they mean anything anymore? Does someone's eliciting rhetoric that is hateful but not factual, denying the Holocaust? Is that allowed? You can say that now, right? Because we live in a post-fact society. And this is really, I feel so compelled to bring this issue together. Again, I want to express to the Bethlehem folks that I'm really disappointed in you, extremely so, because I thought your vision of the world was different and better than this. And this is not, this is the bottom. This is the bottom. The speaker and this approach, had there been, as someone else mentioned, had there been a forum of a discussion of what's occurring with the war in Gaza, what precipitated the war, the slaughter of innocent people. And some people might have had questions from the Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace and wanted to talk with others who might have had different views. But that's not what this is. This isn't a forum for discussion that's being proposed for tomorrow evening. That's not what it is at all. It's from the river to the sea, kill all the Jews and frame it any way you want. But that's the way a lot of people in this room are hearing it. And I am very upset that people's signs are being taken away because I was bragging to everybody at work how I live in a town where I can post a sign, "We stand with Israel," in my front yard and have no fear whatsoever that someone's going to come along and grab it because this is our town. This is a safe place. My kids don't want to come back because they want to move on to the city and live an exciting life. We love Bethlehem. We love Delmar. It's a safe place where people can exchange ideas, whether it's the library or elsewhere, without feeling threatened. And what you heard all night long was people feeling threatened. Thank you very much.
My name is Lori Garricky, and I want to thank the young man that spoke from Christian Brothers Academy. I also am a Christian, and I want to say that I want to say never again will it happen to you as a community. We saw it through Haman in Scripture. We saw Hitler and then now Hamas. And we want to say, as a Christian community, we are standing with you. And my husband and I proudly have a sign in our front lawn that says, "We stand with Israel." And there are too many stories in our past as Christians that when Jews were brought in trains, and the Christians would hear the screams of those people in those trains, they just sang louder. And we are saying, never again. We will stand with you and for you, and we love you.
So first, I want to thank the library board for having this meeting tonight on the last minute and stuff, putting it all together. Thank you for that.
I wasn't intending on speaking. But ever since I've heard about the meeting tomorrow night, I just have something rolling through my head. I shouldn't be fearful to come here. I'm a patron of the library. But there's a difference, as many people have said, between free speech and hate speech. Free speech, absolutely. Everyone has a right of their opinion. But hate speech goes a little bit further. And especially because unfortunately with today's social platforms, hate speech goes a lot further. It becomes incendiary, it becomes actionable. And you know, it's not someone looking for a meaningful dialogue, it's looking for making that incendiary things happen. So I have a little personal dilemma here. I actually happen to be needing to be in a meeting here tomorrow night in the other room at exactly the same time as the speech tomorrow night. And so I'm sitting here thinking to myself, am I going to be comfortable coming to this meeting tomorrow night? Or do I stay away because of my fear? My fear that something more is going to happen here. What are we going to do to make sure it doesn't become hate speech, it doesn't become more than that? And so I'm asking you, what are you going to do to ensure the safety of the patrons here in this room, in other rooms, in the other part of the library? Myself and my 24 neighbors who live across the street, we have a meeting here tomorrow night at the same time. So what can I be saying to my other neighbors to say, you know what, we'll be fine. We can be here at the same time. We don't have to worry about it. So, thank you.
Five? That's it?
No, there's two left.
Two left?
46 and 47.
46?
Oh. No, you can put it up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Dr. Farah Malik. I grew up in Albany, and my husband and I purchased our home here last year because of the library. I love this library and the community. When I practiced medicine, I practiced pathology. I've also been a professor of 10 years. I have dabbled back into anatomic pathology, and I've had both Jewish patients and Muslim patients. Their kidneys, brain, and their hearts are all anatomically the same. I urge you to move forward with the discussion tomorrow as an indication of free speech. I'm a proud Muslim who sympathizes with both the innocent Israeli thousands of lives lost and the 20,000 plus innocent Palestinian lives lost. Like my Jewish brothers and sisters, our community is also so badly hurting. Our pro-Palestinian, and when I say pro-Palestinian, I am in no way indicating pro-Hamas voices, are constantly being restricted on social media. There are resolutions trying to be passed in Congress to restrict the history of both sides being written in textbooks for the future. Our journalists and children are dying in massive numbers. I urge you to allow the speaker to speak tomorrow, to not restrict our voices any longer. Thank you.
I also did not prepare speech.
Okay, she's gonna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I also didn't prepare a speech, but following the things that people have said here tonight, I just want to read two paragraphs from the American Library Association website. One defining hate speech. Hate speech is any form of expression through which speakers intend to vilify, humiliate, or incite hatred against a group of class or a class of persons, the basis of race, religion, skin color, sexual identity, gender identity, ethnicity, disability, or national origin. Another paragraph, knowing that the presence and activities of some groups in public libraries, while constitutionally protected, can cause fear and discomfort in some library users and staff. There are some strategies public libraries can employ to embrace their role as welcoming, inclusive,
and responsible spaces that go beyond the adoption and enforcement of user behavior policies. One strategy is to forego the provision of public meeting rooms, spaces for all users, allowing the library to fully control the messaging that take place in the building and spaces. The second strategy is to employ the library's right under the First Amendment to speak in its own voice as a government agency about matters of importance. The library can exercise its prerogative to convey strong messaging that counters messages of bias, hatred, and discrimination. Such messaging can be proactive, affirmative, and ongoing, as well as a reaction to an incident of hateful conduct or speech. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I was actually number 23, but decided I didn't want to speak, but now I think I want to, so. My name is Ramez Awad. I'm actually a physician in the area. I practiced in Slingerlands for about 10 years. I recognize some faces here. I am a Palestinian. I'm a Palestinian Christian. I have family who live in the West Bank, who live under a brutal military occupation. I've heard several of the speakers here tonight. I've disagreed with much of what you have said. Some of your statements have actually made me uncomfortable, but I've listened. I've respected what you said, and that's what America is about. Some of your statements, such as one person mentioned Palestinian hate-filled marches, or that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic. Those statements make me uncomfortable, but I've listened patiently. I have extended family who live in the Gaza Strip. They sheltered at the church, the Orthodox church there. That church was bombed by the Israeli Air Force. 12 of those family members were killed in one night. Those voices are important. They need to be heard. There has been 75 years of bloodshed in Israel and Palestine. Blocking dialogue is not going to solve this problem. There are many many Israeli leaders who have said horrible and dehumanizing statements about Palestinians currently in the government, saying everybody in Gaza is a human animal. If that speaker was invited here, I would actually come and listen to what he has to say. I would absorb what he had to say, and I'd probably give him some constructive criticism. But that's what our country does. We are not a fascist state, we're a democracy. I just ask that everybody have a little bit of humanity for the Palestinians as well. Not one of the speakers here has mentioned this over 6,000 Palestinian babies that have been slaughtered.
You believe in that?
Yeah, I do believe in that, because I do believe. And I empathize with what happened on October 7th. I do. Any innocent life lost is horrible. But Palestinian lives and Israeli lives are equal. They have a right to live in peace together. Thank you.
Thank you for the committee for holding this meeting today. I wasn't going to speak either, but feel that I need to. I'm joined here today by my father, Chaim, my mother, Daya, my two sisters, Karen and Shom in the back. This is my first time hearing about my nephew being the target of anti-Semitism on the school bus, and I broke down into tears back there. As a soon-to-be father, I'm very concerned on how I'll be raising my soon-to-be daughter. I'm concerned about her future and her safety in the Bethlehem County. Please don't allow Nico Pellet to use this platform to spread his anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism gospel. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take a break as
I think maybe one other person.
Is there one other? Okay, one other patient. Okay, well, after the speaker, we're gonna take a break.
So, I also wasn't planning to speak tonight, but being here today is really quite horrifying. I'm a Jew. I understand that times are scary. And the loss of any civilian life is horrible. But it's honestly so horrifying to see that you would put your personal fear above the lives of 15,000 people who've been murdered. Like, this is so horrifying to watch all of you use this rhetoric about how horrible genocide is to support genocide. And as a Jew, I think it's my duty to be speaking out against this. And I think that we need to amplify other voices of people who are willing to stand up to genocide of any people. And that's why I think it's really important that you allow my colleagues to speak tomorrow. And I really hope that you all come and listen and reconsider your choices.
Okay, we're gonna take a break until 7:50. So we'll reconvene at 7:50.
Get used to the gavel.
As problematic and horrific as that is. Is it?
All kinds of things. You know, drinking by the fire, learning about law. Doing okay?
Yeah. Comfortable in my asthma. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. As I said, there'll be a public participation, part of the meeting, at the end as well, on the agenda. The next agenda item is the meeting room policy discussion. So, I leave it up to the board. I do have a motion that I'd like to, move forward, but, I guess I'll leave it for discussion for if people want to talk about, the meeting room policy.
So, Mark, I just want to clarify, can people hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, during the break, some people asked me, are you taking a vote on the event? And I mentioned that the next agenda item is the policy. So just to clarify for the public, it is a discussion of the policy.
Okay, any motions, before I go first? Okay, I'm gonna do move a motion, let me read it into the record. To hereby resolve that the Board of Trustees direct the policy committee to meet and evaluate the current meeting room policy and all the other policies of the library based on comments received and all other factors. Such evaluation shall be done as soon as practicable. Policy committee will report back no later than the February 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. So I'm going to move that open, ask for a second.
I'll second in order to spark discussion.
Any discussion on the motion?
I'm chair of the policy committee, and I do believe the committee would be able, well, I'm speaking, the committee's at the table, would be able to meet in December to craft a plan on how to address particularly the meeting room policy, but the other ones. We will not be able to have, as you know, the procedures for policies now are, it goes for first read for the board and then second read. I think it's realistic to say we will not have a policy worded for a first read by the board in January, because I think that the policy committee will have a lot to discuss. Even if we came up with a draft revision, we would have to vet it with the attorney. And so I believe that we will have something, we'll report back on the nature of our first discussion, if that discussion can happen in the next 2 weeks. So I'm looking at my fellow committee members, many of whom are also on the personnel committee. And as you know, we're in the middle of a major project for that committee. So I would like to try to set the goal of a report back to the board of the general discussion of the policy committee that has happened in December, get some additional feedback from the board and at our January meeting, and then start crafting a policy for the first read in February, should we be able to touch base with the attorney and get all the legal reviews done by that time.
For discussion with the committee, I'm on Caroline Bricatelli, I'm on the policy committee. I think that among the items to be discussed as related to the room policy is, I think that everyone at this table is aware that the library has an option to open community rooms to the public. We are not legally required to do so. The policy as it stands today and as it stands for the program that is scheduled to go on tomorrow, we cannot change that policy before then. But I put toward the board, and I put to invite public comment as a member of the board over whether that is a better option for the library. That we close it to all or we open it to all. So I put that forward as a member of the committee as something to be discussed both by the committee, by the larger board, and as always, we welcome public input.
Any other discussion? Okay, I also think there's a middle ground option that the board, the committee should look at. It should be done at the committee level, is that instead of having an all or nothing policy, we could maybe look at a monitored policy or some other thing. That is fraught with challenges and others, but I trust the committee of which I'm also a member. We could talk about that and figure out whether there's a middle ground option as well. So.
Can I just say, I'm gonna, Jeff is always part of that committee discussion, not as a voting member as I vote. And I know Jen Crawford, who I would be remiss in not mentioning, are very good at assisting us in tracking the wording and versions and revisions of policies. As we go forward with different ideas, I'm sure the committee will rely on Jeff to vet the ideas with his staff as to what position we may or may not be putting them into, should that policy be revised in a way that puts additional requirements on his staff in terms of whether booking rooms or approving groups for those rooms. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, any other discussion before I say something? Does anyone want to say anything? Okay, I also want to say to the group at large that we hear you. This is a very challenging issue. We spent a lot of time, received a lot of comments from the community, both pro and con on this issue. And I want to thank everyone for coming today and being very respectful. But we do hear you in your concern. Okay. Caroline?
To dovetail on Mark's comments, I have these two comments on behalf of myself, and then I have two motions related to our policies.
So let's do want to do this motion first? Okay. So any other further discussion on the motion before the front board? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising their hand or saying aye. Hearing no opposition or seeing no opposition, that motion carried. Okay, Carol.
I have two comments to tee up two motions that I'm going to make. First one I make on behalf of myself as a member of the board, but not necessarily on behalf of the board. I urge those who organized the event to take place on December 5th, in light of everything that has been heard today at this meeting, and in light that everything that you have heard in your community, I urge you to consider whether that is an event that refrains from language or behavior that threatens, harasses, abuses, or intimidates patrons of the library. I urge you to consider that.
May I respond to that?
There will be an opportunity for public participation after the board meeting. Understood. Also, on behalf of myself, and as a member of the board, not necessarily on behalf of the entire board, although I do think that I speak for the board, I do think that most of the boards would concur in this. Taking into consideration tonight's comments that we have all received from fellow community members, we do not take these issues lightly. I certainly do not take what has been communicated to us lightly. And we hear the concerns and the fear of those that have spoken, in particular, those that are members of the Jewish community and those that are members of other religious communities. There's no question that the atmosphere in the United States has changed in the past few weeks, in particular for members of religious communities and demonstrably for members of the Jewish community. And that is something that the board cannot turn a blind eye to, including the fact that threats come both overtly and they come through coded and less obvious behavior and messaging. To that end, I make two separate motions that I will say one after the other, and then we can vote on as related to our current policies. The first is that pursuant to paragraph 12 of the public meeting policy, that the board directs a Bethlehem Library staff member, executive Bethlehem Library staff member, to be present at the December 5th event to ensure that the patron policy conduct is followed, and that if it is not, that the event be terminated. Second motion I make is that the board ensure that there is a clear and easily accessible mechanism for members of the public to communicate any belief that the patron conduct policy has been violated,
at this or any other program. And by easily accessible, I'm asking explicitly the library staff to ensure that that is easy to find on our website, perhaps at the top, very easily accessible, who to email, how to do that. Thank you. There are two motions.
Okay, let's take the first one.
Do you need a second on them?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll second for the discussion.
Okay, so first motion on is a application of paragraph 12 of the public meeting concept. You want to state it again, just for the record?
Yes, that allows, and I will read that directly. Paragraph 12 of the public access policy states that library personnel must have free access to meeting rooms at all times. The library retains the right to monitor all meetings conducted on the premises to ensure compliance with the above rules. In accordance with that policy, I am asking the board to direct that an executive member of the library staff be on site, be at the meeting on December 5th to ensure that the patron conduct policy is followed.
Okay, motion made, seconded, discussion.
Well, I just want to say that I know that that's already planned. And it's already part of our policy, so I'm not quite sure what we're voting on.
I think it is a part of our policy that the staff has the discretion to use. I am making a motion that the board direct
Yes,
the
yes,
staff to ensure that that happens in this instance.
sure. So I'm gonna revise your motion. So we're not gonna revise the policy. We don't need to put that other way. We're directing the director through an action now to have an executive, but we don't need to put it in the policy.
Yes, it does not. It is in the policy. I'm asking that the board is specifically directing the staff to do something.
Yeah, I understood it was not a policy change. It's a standalone motion related to meeting tomorrow.
Correct.
Any other discussion on that motion? Okay.
Oh, can I just say, I would assume that the patron conduct policy applies to everyone in the event. Inside and outside the library building, because the patron conduct policy, which we are very familiar with, because we just revised it extensively, applies to all the library property inside and outside of the building. Thank you. And there's a solicitation and distribution policy that talks about blocking access to the library building, which we should also have copies of, because it talks about the free access and flow in and out of the library.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. Take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Seeing or hearing no opposition, that motion is carried.
And the second motion to clarify is also not a policy change. Again, it is something that is already occurring that I am asking the board to specifically direct the staff to ensure that there is a clear and easily accessible mechanism for members of the public to communicate their belief that the patron conduct policy has been violated at any program. By easily accessible, as I said before, I mean that we are making it abundantly clear on our website, either through the top, through clear lettering, how to communicate to the library your belief that patron conduct has been violated.
Curious, what would that look like? Just an example, give me an example, just so I know.
For example, if an event occurs and someone believes that there has been harassing speech toward them individually or toward a group that has occurred on library premises, that it is immediately clear to all patrons how to communicate that to the library and to the board. It is my understanding that that mechanism is always available through the ability to speak to the director or to email the director or the board. I'm simply asking that in light of the comments tonight where that concern has been raised, that we highlight how that is done and make it avail and ensure that everyone knows how to do that if they feel that the patron policy has been actively violated.
Are you clear with that, what you're saying?
Yes.
To very explicitly, Jeff, I'm asking you to please put it at the top of the website, how people can complain.
And I would also ask that we try to find other ways besides the website, signage or other ways, which I trust the library has capability to do that. So we also use that other than the website communication levels.
I concur.
So here's my question. So during an event, let's say the speaker says something.
Right.
Am I supposed to like pass a car or like,
No.
and then what is the director supposed to do with it? So I mean, that's my concern, not even a concern, my question. So if someone is in the middle of a speech or a presentation or a discussion, and I'm like, I think they've crossed the line, or I disagree. And I personally feel, what am I supposed to, like, so am I supposed to tell the director and then the director's gonna make the decision? So I'm talking like in real time. I wanna.
And I think that that the first motion was for the staff to address issues in real time.
Mhm.
This is for if speech occurs on library grounds and someone thinks that that speech was not in line with was against the patron conduct policy, that they have a mechanism to communicate that to the library so that that can be brought to the attention of the board, and the board can consider it and, if necessary, take appropriate action.
Yeah, and just to clarify a little bit, the mechanism typically that the patron conduct policy is enforced with in the moment is that people report to the library staff, and the library staff have the first obligation to enforce the policy. That you guys have told us what behaviors are acceptable and unacceptable in the library, and the staff will enforce those. I understand, and that doesn't change. That doesn't change at all, right? But the idea of putting that more clearly and prominently is either on the website and in the building is a good one. It just gives an alternative way for people to have their voices heard.
Yes, and to be clear, of course, that motion comes in response to public comments earlier this year that the library board ensure that the public's means to communicate to the library director and to the library board are as clear as possible, and that the board is constantly revising and reviewing that.
I hear you.
I know you do, Jeff.
I will say that given my email inbox for the past weekend.
Just in case, Jeff.
No, I appreciate this. I think it's important. I will say that
And to make it clear to the general public that if you feel that the patron conduct policy has been violated on library grounds, that you have the right and the mechanism to communicate that to the director and to bring that to the attention of the board.
Okay, motion's been made, seconded as well. Any just further discussion on the motion? Comments, concerns? Okay, seeing no, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Seeing or hearing no opposition, that motion carries as well. Any other motions?
I think I'm good for tonight.
Okay. I do have one other motion I'm gonna bring up. It's a motion actually I've been thinking about a lot, and I support. I could see some issues with it, but I do support it because I think the library is the place for difficult issues to be talked about in a respectful way. So I'm going to make a motion that the Board of Trustees direct the library staff to develop a program or program series on the current events in the Middle East, taking into consideration all perspectives. And such program or program series shall be done as soon as possible. So we usually don't do that. We usually don't direct the director to take actions like that. But I think in this case, I'm gonna take the step to make that motion. Okay. Any seconds?
I second that.
Okay.
I second that with the comment that, with the request from the board that in doing so, the library staff consult community groups for input on how to best portray all perspectives and how to best portray the issues overall. Easy question. No problem.
So I'm just going to respond to the best thought. I think I encourage you to choose diverse perspectives. There are a number of community groups, colleges and universities, and organizations that you can tap. If you need help from the board in terms of connections, please reach out to us.
Any other discussion on the motion? The discussion? Okay, hearing, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Hearing or seeing no opposition, that motion's carried as well. Okay, is there any further business, that the, any member of the board would like to talk about? Okay, any motions or concerns?
Are we making a motion to adjourn or to go to public comment or?
No, the next would be, just going through the agenda list, so.
Right, so I think we're moving now to the second.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
I
you.
was just saying, before we move the public participation, I leave it open to the board if they want to say anything or make a motion at all this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the second public participation. We have, I don't know if we have numbers for this one. Okay, so we don't have numbers, but we will do this the same way, 3 minutes. And we want to call on, there's. Lady down. Yeah, never mind. Yeah.
Right, am I good?
Yeah.
Hi, I just want to say again, I'm Gail Sacco. First of all, I just want to point out that when a user of the library complains about a book, they have a place to fill out that complaint. And one of the things that does is it standardizes the information that you get. So by having a place on the website, I think it's a great idea. But also what they do can be somewhat standardized. So you as a board can see if there's a pattern or if it's just an aberrant kind of thing. So with a problem book, you have to identify what the book is, what the problem is, and then you have to say what your issue is with it. So that it's all very clear when you go through it. Jeff. The library has an obligation to provide a space for public forum that is uninhibited, and I am wondering where in the Bethlehem Library that space is. In the Voorheesville Library, it was in our parking lot. Do you have a space outside the library where where is that space?
The entirety of the outside of the library, as long as the plaza is not blocked to block entrance, is frequently used for free speech.
So if a group of people wanted to have another speaker tomorrow, I'm just theorizing, and we met with your requirements about not blocking the entrance or keeping people from coming in to the library for library purposes or the meeting or the other meeting that's going on, then there could be something that goes on any place in the parking lot.
I would rather it was on the plaza or the green, and because I'm just concerned about
The plaza,
people getting run
I'm not sure what the plaza is.
Plaza is the large paved area out in front.
Oh, you wouldn't consider that blocking the
I
entrance?
think if there was an entrance that would, a 3 to 6 foot wide entrance through there, people frequently
Okay.
do gather on the.
Okay.
on
Okay, I just wanted
Or
to
the
point
green.
that out in the discussion because that is mandated by New York state law. So no matter what happens with your meeting rooms, you have a space that's like a public forum from the 1800s where people can speak as they please.
Yeah.
I per that issue, Jeff, I just was looking at the time frame. It does not say that it is mandatory, but it cannot guarantee the reservation request. So if someone wants to do something in the parking lot or the plaza, do they have to reserve that? Or much like the drag story hour, people showed up and they were on the sides and took pictures and all the rest, and people came and went.
Right.
So could you have a speaker there without having reserving that as I'm just clarifying for myself.
Yes.
Versus like a group saying we're here to express something versus
I mean,
an event.
I don't know if there's a difference. I mean, I think there's some practical space concerns about, and that's why I'm concerned about the parking lot aspect. I just think that increases the chance that someone's gonna get run over, and that makes me really nervous. But there is ample room on the plaza and the green. We reserve the right for instance, the stage that's out there. We reserve the right to use that, to reserve that for a library program. We don't reserve that space for the public, but it gets used all the time. By members of the public. We have some religious displays that take place on the plaza weekly. And those aren't, library programs are not vetted through the library in any way, shape, or form. That's that limited public forum.
So just to clarify, people using outside space, possibly even tonight, do not have to reserve the space with you.
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure people understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, but I would just like to clarify, Jeff, that tomorrow's meeting is limited in attendance and a closed door meeting, unlike the drag story hour where.
It can't be, and it can't be a closed door meeting. And it won't be closed door if they reach the capacity of the room like we did here tonight. It's any group that reserves space at the library has to have it open to the public. That's a requirement of our policy. So people who come into the room are electing to come into the room, but the space must be open to the public for any public meeting here.
But to clarify, once you reach the room capacity, then the doors, like for the drag story hour, the doors were open, so people could kind of listen in from the hallway.
Right, and well, eventually we can close them.
Okay, got it. So once you reach the room capacity, it's done. Okay, thank you.
I just thought that there was a difference because that was a library sponsored event.
Yeah.
And this is not.
It's a requirement that they're open to the public. That causes some consternation on the parts of some groups, but that's a requirement of the policy.
Hi, I'm Marcia Schaefer, a resident of Bethlehem for decades and the Jewish community forever. And you answered the question that I asked Leslie, a reassurance that should anybody at any meeting say something hurtful or hateful, that it would be stopped. But I was going to ask if it was possible, in view of what we've been discussing in the situation, can you hear me? I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Sure you can. That maybe more than one member of a library staff be present instead of just requiring one at the meeting? And is there any plan, maybe a necessity for security closer? I mean, we have the police there, but more presence. Those are my questions and comments.
Thank you. I guess I'm very naive. I've been part of this peace organization for so long. And our goal is to promote peace and justice and education and thoughtful discourse. And I hear a level of alarm, particularly the one woman who said that, if we're standing out on the corner with a sign that says kill all Jews, I don't think the Bethlehem police would like that very much. We would never think of doing that. It's an insult to our integrity, to our compassion, to our empathy, and to our intelligence and our goals of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We are not here to frighten people. I'm just as an anecdote, we had a speaker a few months ago, Scott Ritter. We had a room, this room was full to capacity of Americans, American Russians, Ukrainians, and Ukrainian Americans. And if you want to hear heated discussion, you should have been here. Much of it was heated, but people were expressing their ideas, their fears, their thoughts, and their opinions, and we allow them to do that. We don't want any hateful speech. We don't encourage hateful speech. That isn't who we are. And the people that have spoken who represent, who represent Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, I mean, you people have seen us out there for 20 years holding signs against war, against injustice. My concern is that people interpret a different set of facts or opinions as being hateful. And I would hope that censorship doesn't sneak in via a back door saying, I disagree with what you're saying. What you're saying is hateful. That is censorship. And that's not, according to your own policy, going to be acceptable. But we are not going to be hateful. And I want to say one other thing that I wanted to say before, and there wasn't time, and I don't mean to take up more than my fair time, but I think these things are important. We as a global community and an American community have been dealing with isms forever. Jewish people are afraid. Palestinians are afraid. You can't drive or breathe as a Black person in this country without being afraid. Jewish people don't have a commodity of ownership, of fear, of being who they are. There are many other people in this country who fear for their lives and their safety because of their color or their religion.
I'm back. I wanted to just nod your head. This is going on tomorrow. This event, this speak is happening. Yes. That's what I've heard. Is that what I've heard?
I was directed to come and monitor the program.
So I'm
For the clients.
right. So that's why I'm presuming the event is going on. Okay, I just want to make sure and double check that I heard right. That's, it's at what, 6 o'clock?
7.
7, okay. And is it in this room or this room? Okay, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you for your attention to this important matter.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you. I would just like to counter the notion that that your intention is not to cause fear or to raise alarm. The fact remains that you have raised fear and you have raised alarm. If you listen to this room, I think there's a tremendous amount of pain here, and I think that it's wrong-headed to assume that that pain doesn't exist. You've chosen a speaker who has some very inflammatory things to say, and that's induced a lot of fear. I would encourage you perhaps to reconsider your mechanisms or your approach, because fundamentally what you've done is you've stoked a tremendous amount of fear, stoked a tremendous amount of alarm, and to negate the important concern really very common. Thank you.
Remind people to address the board. Addressing the board.
No, for the board.
Okay, thank you. Remind people to be respectful and address the purpose of the meeting.
Completely and totally respectfully. I'm not sure everyone in this room understands at all what's happening. And I think that there's a humongous population of us that are open to having a meeting. Bring in 2 people representing both sides. Don't bring in somebody to our library who's inflammatory. We're not saying we can't meet. We're not saying we don't want to listen. We're saying, please don't bring this one person. Or please give time for this meeting to be prepared in a way that makes sense and makes people comfortable. There's been great conversation tonight. There's a room full of Palestinians, Jews, Americans, lots of people here who want to get along and find ways to get along. But this group is not bringing somebody in who's making people feel comfortable. Let's take time to pause and regroup and set up a meeting that meets the purpose that they're presenting, but in a way that makes people comfortable and feel safe. And right now, I think it's not the right time. It's not the time to make a group of people feel this unsafe. And creating some way that we can use the library to make the mission of all feel secure is great. But those last comments were incredibly offensive and unnecessary.
Good evening, I'm David DeCancio. I am a Catholic, but I'm up here because, libraries, especially this one, it's about bringing people together. It's about fostering love and be kind. You have a big sign outside your front door that says, be the eye and kind. Unfortunately, the speaker that has been chosen to come here today or tomorrow possibly, is not kind. He has said things, he has justified the terrorist attack that killed over 1,400 Jews and captured over 220, hostages. That's not being kind. That's not a discussion. That is actually somebody that's actually spreading divisiveness. I don't think we want our library and our community to spread divisiveness. Because the fact is, hate and lies will travel halfway around the world before the truth and facts actually can put on their shoes. So I'm just worried, a little concerned that this is actually tearing our community apart in a way that's not conducive to us being a better tomorrow and being better ourselves. So I do hope that the actual sponsors of this said event would consider maybe postponing and maybe bringing in two sides so there can be an actual discussion, not simply have someone articulate their view, which we all have seen actually is not constructive. It's actually divisive and hurtful and hateful. So let's bring two sides together to talk and actually have a discussion like they did at Dartmouth University. They were very successful there. There's other successes out there, not just doing something to just do it. So that's all I say. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dee Levy. I spoke earlier and I don't have prepared comments now, so I'm even more nervous than I was earlier, so bear with me. One of the things that has already been expressed is the importance of a balanced view and bringing multiple speakers in from different perspectives. That is one of the suggestions that came up that the library is going to be looking into, which I appreciate hearing. When I talked to someone with the Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace and gave them an example of Miko Pellet and his rhetoric and his hate, they told me that I misunderstood what he was saying, even though it was in his own words. When Miko Pellet starts his speeches, and I'm going to bet $10 that he'll do that tomorrow, he starts out by saying, if you're here for a balanced conversation, this is not the place for you. He starts off his conversations and his speeches with that. He makes it very clear that he has a very strong one-sided opinion and that he does not believe that Israel should exist. That is the basis of this speaker. So again, making the same point that several other people have made, if Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace truly believes in peace, then they should know that when you're bringing two people to the table, there's supposed to be a compromise. There's supposed to be two different viewpoints. When one person sits across the table and doesn't believe in your right to exist or that you should even be alive, that is not room for compromise or peace. That's why.
So I just wanted to second the last two speakers. I think what you should think about is kind of looking back at what's worked and what hasn't worked over the past month and a half. What has not worked, unfortunately, is one-sided conversations. So if you look at campuses, college campuses across the country, those one-sided conversations end up in hate, and the two-sided conversations end up in understanding. So what you may want to consider before you make your final decision for tomorrow, I don't know what that looks like. Like David just said, Dartmouth College is one of very few colleges that have kind of figured out how to get the campuses together. So what we want to do as a community is come together, right? So if you can kind of take a deep breath, this is a lot of stress that you're experiencing here with all of us coming at you. I don't know if you can come back together tomorrow and sleep on this, but if there's a way to kind of think about it, reach out to the people at Dartmouth have offered, because it's worked, to talk to them and see what's worked. Rob Kovach or any of the other kind of people in the community that are interested in kind of helping you come up with speakers, you might come up with a couple of speakers that have both sides to the conversation that aren't going to inflame, the situation in the community. So thank you.
First of all, thank you again to the board for sponsoring tonight. As you can see, I went home, but decided I had to come back to make one more comment. I think when many of us came here tonight, we hoped to find a middle ground, and I respect that all of you have worked hard to find one. But I think that what we have ended up with is a lose, lose, lose. And I would like to suggest a win-win-win. It's a lose, lose, lose because obviously the many people who came and asked you to put this off are disappointed. There is tremendous damage that's been done to the sponsoring organizations. I hope that they realize that no matter how well-intentioned you are about sponsoring this program, you have driven a wedge into this community. And I think, unfortunately, it's sort of a lose for the library because not only is there this discord, but now you are having to police a speech that in some ways the policing of it, the monitoring, is far more intrusive from the First Amendment perspective than if you just canceled it or let it happen or whatever. So here's my win-win-win, okay? I would ask the sponsoring organizations, please call a timeout on tomorrow. You don't need to do it right now. Let there be an opportunity for dialogue as we are all asking. To the library, you know, we respect your position. Don't put them in the middle of this. Let's work it out as a community, working together the way Delmar tries to do, to see if there isn't a better way to have a constructive dialogue and not something that has become terribly divisive to all communities within Delmar and put the board of the library in a terrible position that is not fair to them. That's the way to solve this. You don't need to do this tomorrow. Let's please work together as a community to find a better way. And that is my request.
Thank you. So let me throw some gas on the fire. There was a motion made. I understood to say that the staff will be asked to monitor tomorrow night's event as it is occurring. And patron conduct policy says individuals, and I assume this includes speakers, must refrain from language or behavior that threatens, harasses, abuses, or intimidates. And I've heard a number of people saying that that's, I don't know, but maybe this is what the speaker is going to do. So what's the remedy? In the conduct policy, it says an individual who violates the policy may be asked by library staff to leave. Do you anticipate that the speaker will be interrupted in mid-presentation and asked to leave? Halt the presentation? I'm just asking that as a question. I'm not proposing it as a solution. I think you maybe have created a bit of a dilemma here. And just one other thing, there was also an original motion about, as I understand, to redo the library's meeting room policy. I think I understood that correctly. If that is to be done, and there's going to be a committee formed, as I understand, I think a change in the meeting room policy has to be done with great deliberation, including consultation, not only with the board members, the committee members, but with community members and with legal counsel. And you have to consider the library's role as a government organization, constitutional requirements, legal requirements, protection of free speech, adherence to your own principles based upon the ALA Bill of Rights. Do not come up with a hastily written policy that is going to be misused to prevent controversial speeches, events from happening. I came here tonight with great trepidation that was what was going to happen tomorrow, that all of the concerns being expressed were going to result in the cancellation of tomorrow's event, which I think absolutely ought not to occur. It should go ahead. But as you redo your policy, be very careful on what you are doing and consult. Be aware of legal and constitutional requirements and your role as a government. Thank you.
I'm not going to take the full 3 minutes. First and foremost, I want to commend the board for taking what appears to be a very middle of the road approach with respect to a issue that is very divisive, number one. Number two, as certain speakers have mentioned previously, those that have been speaking out in favor of and in support of the Palestinian cause have oftentimes in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and even historically, been canceled, doxxed, harassed, intimidated, censored. And tonight's decision is a win for not just free speech, but it is a win for those that advocate positions and perspectives that differ from the majority. Minority positions, those positions that do not flow into the mainstream perspective. So I thank the board for doing what's right and standing up for what is right and not what is easy. Last but not least, your own policy indicates that you have to have these meetings in an open door fashion. So for those that are fearful of what may be said at this meeting, I would encourage them, and I'm not a sponsor of tomorrow's event, I would encourage those that are in fear of what may be said to come and to listen. And as the board has decided, if it is in violation of the patron conduct policy, by all means, they can let the library representatives know. So there is a recourse for those that are intimidated or in fear of what may be said. So again, I thank you for your time. It's been a long night. And I appreciate the open forum. Thank you.
I have one last thing to say. I feel that some of the people come to blame us that we don't care about the Palestinian side. I want to make sure I don't.
Yeah, you gotta address the, please address the board.
I don't feel comfortable of being accused that I don't care about the other side. This is not the issue. We came because this man doesn't agree with the exist of the state of Israel or with Judaism. It's got nothing to do with about the Palestinian. We don't say that we are not hurt or everything. Please don't take it there. Don't say that we don't care about people that are dead there. It's none of us was approaching it. If someone gonna come and speak against the Palestinian and the Muslim, and you're gonna call us to come and to be with you, I promise you that most of us gonna come and stand with us. This is what don't make us Muslim haters. We hate the Jews, and this is what is coming to do. It's got nothing to do between you and us. We are all together. And I think that some of us miss that. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
So just back to my meeting tomorrow night. Can I get clarification? When does the meeting in this room start tomorrow? At 7. So we were told it starts at 6. Our meeting also starts at 7, so that means we're all coming in at the same time. I also want to say I'm not fearful of the speech in this room. Because quite honestly, it just stays in this room and it's just speech in this room tomorrow night. I might not like what's being said, but I'm not fearful of that. What I am fearful about is what spreads beyond this room. What happens in the parking lots? You know, do we need, given the heatedness of this and the heatedness of the speaker that's coming, which is way beyond what, we would normally have if it was just someone in our community talking. Or is there going to be police protection here? Have you considered that? Do we need anything else? So that's, you're a very concerned neighbor who's trying to be at another meeting here at the same time. I think in this case, we're way beyond a normal meeting that happens in this library. So please make sure. I know you're in a terrible position in all of this. So that's what I would ask.
Thank you. Any further comment?
First, I want to tell you that you have a great director. He answered all my emails. So it's amazing. I've never seen something in public office like that. Secondly, I just want to mention one of the ladies said that they didn't know that he was saying that Jews are sleazy thieves. It's incorrect. The Allgemeine, the biggest German publication, found that he tweeted that Jews are sleazy thieves, and therefore Princeton canceled his discussion in Princeton. So if Princeton canceled, I wonder who else should cancel it. And also the honorable physician, the Muslim physician, said she's against Hamas, but Mr. Pellet is for Hamas. And I would also want to remind all of you that on October 7th, 1,500 Israelis were beheaded, murdered, raped, kidnapped, burnt alive, and in their homes, and raped in their homes. It's the most atrocious thing that happened to humanity in the last, I don't know, even in the darkest moments of humanity. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it. That's, and regarding the numbers of Palestinians, we don't believe anything that comes from Hamas as we know, because nothing is right. So please remember that this is the most horrific happening in the history of Israel. Just do you understand that? And I would like you to consider that. And the director, when he monitors this person, it's going to be very difficult to catch him and say, hey, stop here. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I believe in you because you are definitely, as I said, a great director. Thank you.
Do you have a public comment?
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe. I give you, I think it's wonderful you did this tonight for everybody, let everybody speak. And the policy, I don't see I think it's okay. Now, I think the speaker, I guess in my mind, I don't know the format of the speaker, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be a back and forth thing. I thought of it as a history thing, and he's telling you about his life. So I don't know, I guess I was missing that it was going to be such anger stuff. Like, I went to see Bobby Seale at Hudson Valley Community College, and a lot of people would say, why did you go see him? Because he had a history that he was speaking about. And my son, because he's very into history, and he is doing a podcast with his college. And he said to me, and he is a Jewish African-American man who was in the Air Force, which really doesn't matter. He's a human, and he's a hard worker and a great human being. And he said to me, because he couldn't be here tonight, the community room, he doesn't expect this gentleman to do a hate speech. He is an Israeli veteran telling his side of a story that is an issue that has to do with him. He should be able to use this boardroom if hate does come out of his mouth, because it has been other things. And my son in this neighborhood has been called horrible words. That in the sense of it all, it should be allowed to speak, and there should not be violence. It should be his history story. I don't know if that is what he's talking about, because all I'm hearing is that it's going to be hatred and bad words back and forth. So I thought from reading it of what it's going to be, that it was just history, because obviously what's going on in the world is freaking horrible. And even if you went on the all those things, Twitter, even though you know, if you go on social media, you know what they're saying about you, it's horrible. It's horrible. What are we teaching our kids? Just don't deal with it. Let's fight hate with hate. What's going on in the world is horrible. What's going on in the community is horrible. We're humans. Think about what you want the family to go through, what these people, what they're going through. We're lucky what we have. We're very lucky. So it shouldn't be a hate thing. And if it's going to be a hate thing, it's going to be ended right away, because I trust you're going to end it. You want to deal with people in the parking lot? That's ridiculous. That should not happen to you. So I give you credit for coming and letting everybody in this room speak, because we all have a history in life. We do not want horrible things to be repeated. So thank you.
No, I think we're done.
Can I clarify what's going to happen tomorrow night?
Oh,
Because
could you
I'm one of the organizers.
Sorry. All right, this is the last speaker.
We have the head. We have the
Say your name.
Studies, Hudson BNP. We have the head of global studies at the university, David Banks, coming. He is Jewish. He is going to interview Miko.
Okay.
He is not going to present a lecture, Miko. He is going to be interviewed by a Jewish Department of
We could
the.
adjourn,
Global
don't close, so what?
Okay, thanks.
Clarify
I
how
think,
the
yeah,
meeting-
thanks. I think I've been here a long time. Appreciate everyone's experience for tonight.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Need a second?